these are difficult times in which we live. But that's always the case, especially in this Kali Yuga, which began 5,000 years ago, right after Lord Krishna disappeared from this world. And the nature of this epoch in which we live, the Kali Yuga, things are especially difficult. Whoever would have guessed that in this day and age that you talk about a dictator trying to steal land from other countries, that formerly it was said, like Frank Zappa said in the 1960s, it can't happen here. But when we see it happens here, and the people are protesting, and the government is trying to use illegal means to suppress the free speech of the people. Oh, well, that's in countries where they have those demoniac dictators. Well, interesting. There was one commentator on social events that said there was a special diet that the dictators have. It's called the dictator diet. And in places like in Cuba and in Iraq and in some countries in Africa, we had the same guys been in charge for 40, 50 years. It used to be Suharto in Indonesia and the Saud family in Syria. Like, they have this special diet in which they like to seem to live forever. They just don't die and they stay in power. And then they rig elections, and it's amazing they even have elections because they're rigged. And so there's a statement, a portion of a shloka in the Srimad Bhagavatam that states that Jivo Jivasya Jivanam. The strong devour the weak. One living entity is food for another. But in human society, there's this idea that, oh, this is not right. This is not civilized. And for those of us of a certain age, we can certainly see the decline in the quality of the human beings within our very lifetimes, from the 1950s and the 1960s to today. And it's not surprising for those who know the Vedic scriptures. These things are all predicted. There's a whole series of predictions in the 12th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam about what will be social conditions and physical conditions for people in this age of Kali. And especially speaking, this age lasts another 428,000 years, or 427,000 years, or 5,000 years into it. So it's a very long age, and there's plenty of time for things to get worse. And things do get worse, and we have seen how they're gradually growing worse. Just for example, the proliferation of drug addiction and homelessness and mental illness, that has rapidly increased in the last even 20 years, what to speak of 30, 40, 50 years ago. So under these conditions, what is a sane person to do? Just like one of our leading female devotees in our movement has talked about the position of ladies. She said, what's a woman to do? So, and what's a man to do? What are we poor conditioned souls to do under these extremely oppressive and difficult conditions in human society? And what is causing these conditions? And what are the solutions to these problems? Of course, the basic cause of human suffering can be boiled down to the behavior of human society. And where you have a worldwide proliferation of meat eating, intoxication, illicit sex, and gambling, which are all the four pillars of sinful life. Then you have all kinds of reactions that go on, including the killing of unborn children in the womb. These are all extremely sinful activities, and it's not like you can just go through life and do whatever you want to do and expect everything is going to be okay. It depends, as the old Judeo-Christian saying goes, as you sow, so shall ye reap. And if people are trying to have the best intentions in their life about how to live their life, but they don't know what to do, they don't know what is right and what is wrong. Formerly, there was a great emphasis on upbringing in human society, that children were taught what is right and what is wrong. And as they grew into adults, they had a sense of duty and responsibility to, what did Spike Lee say? Do the right thing. But more and more we see that as concept is not prevalent in human society. Do the expedient thing. The consciousness of dog eat dog. And the top dog, who's the biggest dog of them all, then they find a way to capture the votes of the smaller dogs, and then they're on top. And they want to arrange everything for themselves and their friends to prosper, and meanwhile abrogating the basic human rights or human needs of a society. In the Vedic culture, the king was responsible for what went on in his kingdom. And one devotee I know, he used to be in the merchant marines, and he had a chance to meet the king of Norway one time. It was a long time ago, 30, 40 years ago or more. And he actually got a chance to ask him, what do you think is the most important thing, or is the most important duty for the king? And he said the most important thing for a king is to serve the people of the kingdom and make sure that they have all opportunity to live a good, healthy, and prosperous life with safety and security. And that was a very good answer. He was from a royal family. There was some training there. He knew exactly. And that was also in Vedic culture, the kings and the emperors, they very much felt responsible for the condition of their society, because they knew that the leader of a particular society, the king or the president or the prime minister, whoever, actually absorbs 1/6 of the sinful reactions of the people in his kingdom. Therefore, when you see someone who becomes the president of the United States, and then you see a picture of them, and 4 years later, at the end of their term, you see another picture of them, they aged about 20 years in that 4 years. Not just because they worked hard, which they of course have to work very hard, but because they're accruing the bad karma that goes on their watch. So under the conditions of meat eating, maintaining slaughterhouses as a commercial enterprise all over the place, and I know I grew up in a town where there was a big slaughterhouse. 2 different towns I lived in when I was a kid. There were big slaughterhouses. And so this, people don't understand. They think it's fine. You just go and buy your burger and you eat it and you're good. You know, you're no longer hungry. You're satisfied. But actually there is all this sinful karma, bad reactions accruing from what? Slaughtering the innocent animals. That is prohibited in human society. And Prabhupada says, Srila Prabhupada teaches us that, it's not wrong for a tiger to pounce on an animal and kill it and eat it. And actually, generally, the tigers they'll make a catch, they make a kill, they get something to eat, and they even have to stash the kill so that the hyenas and the other scavengers don't get it. But generally they do, and they only get a little bit to eat. And then every time they go on the hunt, there's some little bird behind them going, and all the animals know tiger's coming, and they all run. So it's very difficult for the tiger to even get his fill. Conditions are not easy. But a human being should not be that. Human beings are meant to grow grains and vegetables and fruits and live off the bounty of nature. That is the natural law, and that is sanctioned by God. Krishna explains this directly in Bhagavad Gita, that human society subsists on food grains, and food grains are produced because there's rain. And where does rain come from? Oh, it's meteorological phenomena? No, actually rain for human society to prosper is expedited by performance of sacrifice. And sacrifice comes from human society understanding how to perform their prescribed duties and live accordingly by worship of the Lord. And when one properly engages in this way, then the material nature does not withhold, and everything is provided in abundance in human society. In the Satya Yuga, which is the age that was long ago, the golden age, which will come again after this Kali Yuga has expired, people didn't even have to engage in agriculture because the earth just yielded so much produce and so much grains and fruits, and also there was so much profusion of gems and minerals and auspicious substances that it was very easy for people to live. The sadhus, the saintly persons, would live in the forest, and everything that they needed was easily available. But now everything is a great struggle, and that is the nature of the Kali Yuga. So it's a good time for human beings in the world today to really try to dig deep and understand what is the solution, what is the answer to all the difficulties that beset us in our lives. Now, in the Bhagavad Gita, which is spoken by Krishna, therefore it is called Shastra, Vedic Shastra. Shastra means like a stick. The Shastra governs us. We should be governed by Shastra, by the injunctions of the scriptures. But when human society ignores those injunctions that are given in the Shastra, then things go awry and people suffer. Such is the state of the world today. And some cynical person may say, well, that's always the way it is. That's always the way it is. But we have information otherwise. Just like in the Satya Yuga, you didn't have to work hard to get food. Everything was easily available. You just, low-hanging fruit, just pick it off the tree, no problem. But now everyone is working very hard and struggling to get by. They have a phenomenon now that, middle-class families that make like $100,000 to $150,000 a year or more with the combined husband and wife income, they're struggling. They're struggling to pay all their bills and arrange for everything, have the right car, have a good car, good school for the kids. School is very expensive. The university education is extremely expensive now. And people are in debt up to their eyeballs for their university education, which they get, and then sometimes they can't even find a job that they work so hard to become qualified so they could get that job. They can't even find the job. And they go further and further into debt. This is not uncommon, and people are feeling the pressure. All our family were struggling. We're only making $150,000 a year, and we're just barely getting by. I'm going to have to, drive Uber part-time on the weekends and, take a second job and do some kind of online business just to make ends meet, because it's only $150,000. It just doesn't cut it anymore. I remember $150,000 used to be like, wow, they're living high on the hog in that condition. But that's the successful people. Then there's a lot of other people who are not so successful. They're just struggling, and they can't even pay their health care premiums. Like a couple, a working couple, and their health care premium is $3,000 a month. Under those circumstances, I would think just forget the health insurance, take that money and pay cash when you need something. $3,000 a month, $36,000 a year for health insurance for a couple with no kids. It's amazing. So the Kali Yuga is beating down on the heads of everyone. And people are wondering, well, why are we suffering? Why are we struggling? Because of not following what's given there in the Bhagavad Gita. For so Krishna says that in the beginning of the creation, he sent forth generations of men and demigods, and he told them, perform sacrifice for Vishnu, and this sacrifice will please the demigods, it will please the Lord, and then they will become pleased and reciprocate with you. And in this way, human society will live a happy and fulfilled life and have plenty of opportunity for the higher aspects of life, which is self-realization. And so sometimes people, they say, well, I want to be free from all this. How can I be free? Well, Krishna informs us in Bhagavad Gita, Daivi hieshu gunamai, mama maya dhiratyaya, that this material nature, which is controlling everyone. Matter of fact, the example is given in the Srimad Bhagavatam that just like puppets are dancing on a string that's manipulated by the puppet master, the poor conditioned souls are dancing according to the conditions of material nature, like puppets on a string. Hopeless. All kinds of stuff is happening. They can't control it. They can't find the solution. So therefore, Krishna says, Daivi hieshu gunamai, mama maya dhiratyaya. That is impossible to overcome the material nature. Because the material nature is God's energy. So how are you going to overcome God's energy? This, by very definition, God means the most powerful. So how are you going to overcome the most powerful? Because we ourselves, both individually and collectively, we are not the most powerful. We are controlled by forces far more powerful than us. For example, who can overcome death? Who is exempt from death? I once went to this commune in Florida where there were these vegans, and they had a very grand concept of themselves. And they actually said, we did a program, we went there and we did kirtana, we distributed prasadam to them. And they were saying that, now we're the new generation of vegans, and never before has this been done in human history. I'm like, huh? And then they're like, it is so wonderful that because we're vegan, now we're going to conquer death. We'll just live forever eating vegan in their commune outside of Orlando. And there was a little group of devotees, and when they told us this, that they were going to live forever, we all just burst out laughing. Like, what you talking about, Willis? This is not possible. You cannot overcome the stringent laws of material nature. Because those laws are far more powerful than anything you can do. So what to do? How to become free? Krishna says in the second half of that verse, Mam eva ye prapadyante, mayam etam tarantite. But those who surrender to me, they can easily cross beyond this material nature. Oh, that's for me then. That sounds good. Yes, I would like to easily cross beyond this material nature. How do you do that? Mam eva ye prapadyante. Those who surrender to me, Krishna says, can easily cross beyond the difficulties and the struggles and the suffering of the material energy, which is the Lord's energy. So if you surrender to the Lord who controls that energy, then you can very easily achieve freedom from the material energy and freedom from suffering. In the fourth chapter, Krishna says that those janma karma chame divyam, those who know about Krishna's janma, his appearance in this world, karma, his activities, chame divyam, which are all completely transcendental, unlike the birth that we take. Do we take birth by our own sweet will? No, we're forced. We're assigned the womb of a mother and take birth helplessly, hopelessly. And then according to our previously performed and acquired karma, then we get birth in a certain family, we get birth under certain economic conditions. Even Krishna goes so far as to say that those who try to advance in the path of bhakti but are unsuccessful, they get special opportunity in their next life. Suchi nam srimatam gehe joko brashto bijayate. That the joko brashta, the unsuccessful transcendentalist, gets more opportunity in the next life to pursue their Krishna consciousness. By Suchinam, taking birth in a family of brahmanas, of learned brahmanas. Srimatam, or a family of very rich merchants, capitalists, and people who are born in those families, they have all kinds of opportunities, freedom. They don't have to struggle very hard just to live like people in the lower classes and the middle classes and the poor classes. No, they're born with a silver spoon in their mouth, and they have opportunities to do things. They get good education, and they have the freedom, or you could say the leisure, to inquire. Well, why am I struggling? Why am I suffering? And what is the answer? And they get special opportunities. That's called yogo brashto. Yogo brashto vijayate. That's a very fortunate opportunity. And then following that, Krishna says, and then there's a very special birth that the yogo brashta can get if they're advanced. They take birth in a family of great devotees. And from the very beginning of their life, they are engaged in the culture of bhakti yoga. And Srila Prabhupada gives himself an example. He said, we had the fortunate opportunity to take birth in such a family. His father, Gaur Mohan Dey, although ostensibly a cloth merchant, a shopkeeper, he trained his son in deity worship from the very beginning of life. And even Srila Prabhupada had his own Radha Krishna deities at the age of 5. And he would bathe them and dress them and offer food to them. And he also insisted to perform Ratha Yatra in his neighborhood in Calcutta at age 5. He wanted to get a Ratha Yatra cart. And so his father was like, this is a far-out kid. He wants to have Ratha Yatra in the neighborhood. What kind of devotee is taking birth in my family? So he took him around to different carpenter shops, but it was too expensive to have the cart made. And then little Abhay Charan, Srila Prabhupada, And he started having a fit and crying because he wanted to have a Rath Yatra cart. And one older lady came by and she said, "What's the problem? Why is the little boy crying?" The father said, "Oh, he wants to have a Rath Yatra, but we can't afford to have a carpenter build a miniature Rath Yatra cart." And she said, "Oh, I have one. I have one such cart in my garage. And you can have it. You can use it." And so they pulled out the cart. It was kind of old and worn. And then little Srila Prabhupada at age 5, he was engaging all his friends and everyone in the neighborhood. And he painted the cart, just like the pictures of the cart he saw in Jagannath Puri. Painted it, made everything nice. All the ladies in the neighborhood offered to cook for the festival. And he led the kirtan. He organized all his friends at age 5. Later on, he introduced the Rath Yatra throughout the whole world. Matter of fact, there's a Rath Yatra today in Phoenix, in a park in Chandler, right? How was that? You were just there. Yeah. They have a big Rath Yatra cart and deities, and they go in procession. They distribute prasadam. They chant the holy name in such a place as Phoenix, Arizona. Amazing. What to speak of Tucson, where we also have our Rath Yatra every year during the Day of the Dead parade. So this great science of bhakti that Krishna is teaching in the Bhagavad Gita, it creates a very auspicious situation, especially for the practitioners, but also around them. It creates an auspicious situation locally, wherever there is Krishna consciousness being performed. And therefore, it is the solution for human society to understand this teaching of Bhagavad Gita. Who am I? I'm an eternal spiritual being. And what is the occupation of the eternal spiritual being? It's the eternal devotional service of the Supreme Lord. So people don't know this. Lokasya janato vidvams. The people don't understand anything about this. Therefore, Srila Vyasadeva, Chakre Satvata Samhitam, compiled the Srimad Bhagavatam to bring light into this dark age. So people who have lost their vision due to the dense darkness of ignorance that pervades the world currently can get light from the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's as brilliant as the sun. And this light can lead human society out of the hopelessness and the despair and the darkness of ignorance into the light of spiritual happiness. So that is the mission of the Hare Krishna movement, is to help bring about this situation by distributing this knowledge, teaching this knowledge, and exhibiting the activities of Krishna consciousness, which we perform here in our temple and in our temples all over the world. All right, so we'll stop there. Questions, comments, realizations? Anyone? Okay, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Bhagavad Gita ki jai.